Hey everybody, Grumbles here with some more War Thunder historic battle footage. So, last week I played the P-39 Airacobra a little bit to get closer to unlocking the P-51, and I also played the MC-202 a lot because I wanted to finally get to level 12 in the German tree as well. And also because I noticed that 202 is a good plane to train some patience and discipline when flying it. But more about that later. Let's take a quick look at the Airacobra. The P-39 is the Tier 6 fighter on the US tech tree and the little brother of the P-63 I flew in earlier videos. There are currently two versions, the N and the Q, both at the same level. I fly mostly the N version. I feel it just flies a bit better than the Q and has a slightly higher top speed. As armament, the P-39 has a powerful 37mm autocannon and two 50 caliber machine guns in the nose. Additionally, the N has four 30 caliber machine guns in the wings and the Q has two 50 caliber machine guns in pods under the wings. I personally prefer the P-40, but the P-39 shares some of the P-40's characteristics and can be flown in a similar way. I use the plane mostly as a boom and zoom plane, utilizing its decent dive characteristics. With sufficient speed, the P-39 also turns pretty good. However, its energy retention in turns is not very good and it will lose speed very quickly. So I would suggest to avoid turn fights unless you are confident that you can seal the deal fast or you are in sufficient altitude to regain energy in a dive. Being a level 6 plane, the P-39 will often meet higher tier opponents that outperform it quite significantly, in which case I feel it is the best thing to stay careful and wait for a fight to develop. Then use the strong weapons of the plane to pick off opponents quickly in a boom and zoom approach. Let's take a look at a quick example for this on Operation Roar. I tagged along with a small group of King Cobras and Spitfires climbing to the west side of the map, but a majority of the opponents went more to the east and attacked friendlies there. By the time we reached them, a nice big low-level brawl developed below us. A perfect situation for a strongly armed boom and zoom plane like the Cobra. I initially tried to get a shot at the passing 190, but I see a Spitfire attacked by a 109 and I tried to go for the 109 to help out the Spit. A bit of a risky shot at this speed and angle, but if I can help a teammate I usually try to do so. I am a bit too late however and regain some altitude after the pass. Another Spitfire finishes off the 109. But there are still enough targets to choose from and I come around in a slight climbing turn while deciding what target to go for. I spot the 190 I was stalking originally and he seems to be on relatively low speed, which makes him a good target. After some initial hits he dives and I go for a leg displacement roll to get back on his tail. I am fairly certain the P-39's dive acceleration is sufficient to catch up to the 190, which was already somewhat slow should he try to run. But I don't have to put this theory to the test. He turns into a head-on with another plane and leaves his upside exposed to a deflection shot. Meanwhile, the small group of P-63s and Spits I entered the fight with did a good job cleaning up the rest, and I move towards the last opponents remaining they are currently engaged with. There are 3 109s remaining, and I want to pick the one as target that seems to have the most potential for causing my teammates trouble. The E3 on my right is currently coming back into the fight and unlike the other two has nobody on its tail, so I go for this one. Getting another nice chance for a deflection shot at the upside of the plane. Hitting from above, one hit from the 37mm is usually enough. Now, that was a bit of Airacobra footage. Let's take a look at the MC-202. The Macchi C-202 is on level 4 in the German tech tree, and in one of my earlier videos I said that I feel it is the only fighter on this level currently in the German tech tree that can really compete with the P-40. And after flying it a bit more, I would say it's an overall amazing plane that has one major problem. Let's take a look. The MC-202 has a powerful DB601 engine that gives the plane a power-to-weight ratio similar to the BF-109E, which is 2 levels higher. Thanks to this, it is very fast for its level, and it can outrun, outclimb and out-accelerate most planes on this tier, and it dives pretty well too. It is not a turn-and-burn fighter, though it can dogfight if it has to, but I would say it is similar to the 109 in this regard, and should be used as a boom and zoom or energy fighter whenever possible. Now, that was the good news. The big problem the plane has is its armament. Now, at first, the armament does not look impressive, but not too bad either. It has two 12.7mm machine guns in the engine cowling and two 7.7mm machine guns in the wings. Looks like the same armament the Ki-61A has, and the F4F Wildcat has only 4 machine guns too. However, the 12.7mm Breda machine guns fitted on the 202 are inferior to pretty much all other weapons of this caliber in the game, in both rate of fire as well as muzzle velocity. The Japanese Ho-103 guns, for example, produce a slightly higher muzzle velocity despite using a similar cartridge, and a much higher rate of fire. The American AN-M2 50 caliber machine guns have a slightly higher rate of fire and a much higher muzzle velocity. That is of course a problem. The low rate of fire means that a lot less bullets hit in a burst, and the very low muzzle velocity means the bullets have less kinetic energy and a shorter range. Also, you have to lead the target and compensate for bullet drop a lot more, which makes aiming, especially in deflection shots, more difficult. On top of that, I feel machine guns are slightly too weak in general at the moment, and Gaijin announced in a recent Q&A session that they will most likely be boosted in the future. But that is why I said earlier that I think the 202 is a nice plane to learn patience while flying boom and zoom. You will, in most cases, need multiple passes to get results, and it can be very tempting to break off the dive attacks and enter a turn fight to seal the deal. However, the 202 will face mostly good turners, like the Spitfire Mark I, Hurricanes or the I-16 for example. Giving up your energy in this plane means giving up the big advantage the plane has and playing to the strengths of the opponent's planes. Also, you have to keep your situational awareness up. Since you most likely need some time to take down an opponent, others have a lot of time to go for you if you focus only on your target and overlook them. If you do keep track of the situation though, the plane's performance gives you the ability to keep an energy advantage over multiple opponents, and you can keep doing dive attacks as opportunities arise. Well, let's take a look at a bit of boom and zoom flying in the 202. Here we are flying versus the RAF and face mostly Spitfire Mark Is and Hawker Hurricanes. With the 202's rate of climb, it is relatively easy to gain altitude and enter the fight with an energy advantage. Now it's about being not too greedy and keeping the energy up while doing dive attacks. I choose a Spitfire as target and come down attacking from behind, climbing back up but not too steep. And since there are no other opponents higher or threatening me at this point, I come down on a second pass right away. Here you can see that the low muzzle velocity is giving me a bit of trouble. I am not used to leading the target that much, and I have to pull harder than I had planned to get hits. Now, since that relatively hard pull has cost me some energy, I gain some separation and regain some energy before making my next move. At the same time checking what the opponents are doing and if any are fast enough to be a threat to me. None are. My target is coming after me, however, but on lower altitude. As I usually like to do in a situation like that, I go into a slight climbing turn. I want the Spitfire to get closer and eventually end up below me, where I can then again go into a diving attack. Normally I would try to do that in such a way that I attack from above and behind, but in this case a pass from the front has to do. If it would have looked like he can come around enough to fire back, I would have aborted the pass. I always try to avoid head-ons, and the Spitfire has a lot more guns than my 202. Now looking back I see that the Spit is coming in my direction again, but this time he is a lot lower, since he used up energy to turn after me while I continued straight. I go up in another climbing turn again and roll in for another dive. However, the guns still give me trouble and I misjudge my lead. I plan on using the energy from the dive to come around in a high yo-yo and attack again right away. But just when I am about to do that, a new blip appears on the minimap. A hurricane has entered the fight, so I go straight and re-evaluate the situation. With the unexpected appearance of the hurricane, I feared at first that he has dived on me and is on high energy, but it turns out the hurricane climbed up and is not faster than the Spitfire. With both of them on low energy, I know I can continue to attack and use the 202's great performance to keep an energy advantage over both of them. Now the Hurricane is a bit closer and it looks like the Spitfire is an easier target at this point, so I dive past the Hurricane and make another pass on the Spit. But he turns pretty tight and at this height I cannot get the necessary lead. It would have been possible to get the lead for the shot here if he had been on higher altitude and I could have dived past him. One of the very few situations where being this low turns out to be an advantage. Well, the Spitfire has enough of this and leaves the fight towards the airbase, but the Hurricane is trying to climb up to me again. However, he is on much lower altitude. So like before, I go into a slight climbing turn and let him come closer, until he is below me. Now I can roll down and attack from behind and above, like I planned to do with the Spitfire earlier in the fight. This time the guns hit the upside of the plane, where you usually have the best chances for terminal hits, and I get some lucky hits that take the Hurricane out. Well, those were a few examples of flying the P-39 Airacobra and Macchi C202. And this is it for this video. I hope it was entertaining, thanks for watching, and maybe I see you next time.